Adrian, do you want to call the next one just to make it official?
Sure. So our second work session is the Imagine Dubuque update. I know Planning Services staff are coming up as part of that transition, and Wally Warnemont, Planning Services Director, will kick it off.
All right, thank you, Adrian. Evening. Well, I sorry about the Iowa State comment, but, you know.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Wally Warnemont, Planning Services Director. Tonight we're here to give you an update on the Imagine Dubuque Comprehensive Plan. With me tonight is Jason Duba, Assistant Planner. He's a great asset to our department. I love Jason. He is my numbers guy, stat guy. It helps kind of put everything together, especially with the comprehensive plan. He's the one that gets to manage when we talk about the collective impact model and the Achieve It software, and to keep people on task to make sure we're moving forward with the 110 plan recommendations. But why are we here tonight? Why are we here to talk about the Imagine Dubuque Comprehensive Plan? So, you know, the purpose of a comprehensive plan, it's our policies guide for the community's physical, social, and economic development, but also it helps inform City Council goal setting, annual budget priorities, and land use decisions. And we always like to hold this update right before you guys go into City Council goal setting and talk about the budget. Just kind of give you a refresher, reminder of the Imagine Dubuque Comprehensive Plan, but then also for all of our city staff that's associated as they work through their budgets and their presentations. They do pick up this document. They do use it to look at what are certain things in the CIP budget and our operation budget that can help move forward some of our goals and recommendations. And then also with our city staff, boards and commissions, and our community partners are called to action on the plan. So community engagement with regards to it, as we know, this is a pretty big success story. We do present on this quite a bit. We do talk about quite a few department or communities with regards to it, which Jason will talk about at the end of the presentation. But you know, we inclusively engaged 6,000 people and we generated over 12,500 ideas. And all those were narrowed down into 7 categories to create 110 community recommendations. Like I mentioned, we are implementing this through a collective impact model. You know, it's very important that we work as a community. It's not just the city, but all of our partners and the community as a whole to help move forward some of these goals and recommendations. There are things that the city can move forward, but there are things that we cannot move forward. We need the assistance of our partners and our community members to help assist us with those. So the way we do that is through this infographic that you see quite often. There are 7 plan categories, and each one of those categories is managed by a city department head. And then those we go through to our coordinators, which are 32 plan subcategories. And with those coordinators, they're made up of other city staff members, community partners, individuals in our community that move forward a recommendation. And then we have our champions. These are the people that are actually moving forward the plan. We have individuals that will step up and might find a goal or recommendation that fits their need and something we could help provide assistance. We don't just have one champion, we may have multiple champions for one goal to help move forward in our community. So with that, I'm going to hand this over to Jason Duba to kind of go through and how we track that and provide you some of the updates on the comp plan. So.
Thank you, Wally. Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff. My name is Jason Duba, Assistant City Planner. What you see are the status definitions that you'll be familiar with from past Imagine Dubuque updates and as well as your City Council goals and priorities updates. This is the language that we use in defining them. So these are terms that all the coordinators are familiar with as well and use in their status updates. So this is a snapshot of the progress from last year to this year of the 110 recommendations. At this point, we have 88% that are on track or achieved, which is a modest growth from last year where 85% were at that level. One thing that I will point out is last year we had 10 recommendations that were not started. 5 of those are now in some form of progress, and so there are only 5 not started this year. So we use the Achieve It software that you're familiar with to track these updates. We have a dashboard, and in your council packet you have a static PDF version that shows the status of all 110 recommendations. And those are reflected on our city website as well. We have these widgets that translate directly from Achieve It and update automatically on the city's website that show the status of each of the categories. And that's been live for about a year now. So going through the 7 categories, we start with economic prosperity, whose connector is Jill Connors. And what I'm going to do is for each of the 7 categories, I'm just going to highlight one selection of progress from the past year. So with 110 recommendations being updated quarterly over a year, we have over 400 updates that we get in the course of a year. So it's a bit of a challenge to select just one, but I'm picking some that represent both city projects and community-led projects, some that are multifaceted and some that are singular projects. And while these are highlights, you do have the whole 110 recommendation set in your packet. So for economic prosperity, the housing category has a recommendation that says to foster the development of new and additional housing products in suitable locations throughout the city. So as you're well aware, we have numerous housing developments underway or complete in the city, such as Union at the Marina, Century Square, Emory Apartments, 1734 and 36 Central Avenue, and The Farm, and more coming online and being completed regularly. In sustainable environment, Gina Bell is the connector, and both of these from year to year remain 100% on track. In the subcategory called Eco-Education and Participatory Conservation, we have a recommendation to promote educational programming and partnerships that enable children to experience nature. So a perfect example of this is a brand new project that we would consider a champion in Imagine Dubuque, as they're aiding this recommendation, is the Dubuque Nature Everywhere initiative, which is an initiative of the Children in Nature Network, the National League of Cities, and Kaboom, who selected Dubuque to join a national initiative called Nature Everywhere Communities, which is designed to increase equitable access to nature everywhere, so everywhere children live, learn, and play. So this is being led by a project team of Dubuque Forward, and their overarching goal is to ensure that every young child in Dubuque can grow up with meaningful, everyday experiences in nature, aiming to spark a community movement that supports families, caregivers, and educators in making nature a vibrant and accessible part of everyday life. In the social cultural vibrancy category, Corey Burbach is the connector. And the highlight here for this year is in the health category, where we had some good progress on a recommendation that hadn't had any progress up to this point. It's in the health subcategory, and it says, explore the potential for Dubuque area health providers to prescribe fruits and vegetables as part of a strategy to combat obesity. So Sherry Edwards, who's the Director of Grants and Health Optimization at Crescent, explained that they ran one produce prescription program already, are in the midst of a second one, and have 3 future programs in the works. Participants were invited based on health conditions and low-income status. Crescent built its program with a focus on helping patients with chronic conditions understand how food, particularly produce, and healthy recipes could help them make progress on addressing their health. The program also supports access to and knowledge on healthy ingredient shopping skills. The program is facilitated through an existing provider at Crescent, who is a lifestyle medicine physician, and participants received a small gift card to make grocery purchases. The livable neighborhoods and housing category, the connector is the Housing and Community Development Director. And in the housing, in the livable neighborhoods subcategory, one recommendation is to continue to review the city's codes and incentives to ensure what is working continues and that any other barriers are a priority to address and remove. So we're in the midst of the Unified Development Code update. Our consultant Camiros has worked with the Planning Services Department to conduct public and technical group surveys, stakeholder interviews, and analysis of the existing code. They drafted this technical review report and presented findings and suggestions both here and at a public meeting. And they are working on a draft code with future public and council review to come. The community facilities category has Gus Ahoyas as the connector. And in the infrastructure subcategory, the recommendation is to continue to expand the sanitary sewer collection system to meet growth needs, particularly in proximity to the Southwest Arterial, the West End, and the Southport. So as you observed, the construction is well underway for the Old Mill Road lift station project. The Phase 2 force main to the Water Resource and Recovery Center is under contract and starting construction. And Phases 3 and 4, which are expansions of the Catfish Creek Middle Fork and South Fork, have engineering design consultants selected. Transportation and Mobility, Ryan Nucky is the connector. And several projects relate to the Complete Streets subcategory, which has this recommendation. For all Dubuque corridors, assess opportunities to plan and design for complete street elements during each stage of maintenance and project development cycle. So we have the bike lanes on 9th and 10th that were installed last summer. There's a project to connect those to the B Branch Trail that is scheduled to be constructed next year. We have upcoming projects like the RAISE grant, which will include not just a railroad overpass, but complete streets elements in that area. The Central and White study recommended the multimodal alternative, and that's what council selected and what is being planned for. And the East-West Corridor project design is continuing with complete streets elements at roundabouts in the corridor. And finally, the land use category, Wally-Wernimont is the connector. And in the park and open space category, the recommendation is continue to work closely with the school district to locate and, where appropriate, share facilities to serve existing and future neighborhoods. So Lincoln Elementary School developed a brand new playground in part with community development block grant funds from the city. It was developed with neighbors' needs in mind, with a walking track and exercise stations, in addition to playground, swings, and basketball courts. And my daughter's a third grader at Lincoln, and she can attest that it's a great playground. And then this summer, we were contacted by the Local Infrastructure Hub, which is a nationwide organization that helps cities learn about applying for grants and get resources to aid their development. They put together a resource about long-range planning and strategic planning, and they invited Dubuque and Mayor Kavanaugh to provide input about Imagine Dubuque, including through a webinar that happened in August. And Wally will finish off here.
Mayor Kavanaugh did a great job during that webinar, by the way. It was a lot of great information, quite a few people on there with regards to getting the information with our Imagine Dubuque plan and our community engagement specifically. So what are the next steps with the Imagine Dubuque plan? So one proposal from the Planning Services Department, we talk about budgeting and going through city council goal setting, is going to be a recommendation from our department to look at doing a downtown master plan in fiscal year 2027. In addition to continue to work on updating the website with regards to marketing and outreach and reporting. And then we'll always be on the work for continue to identify the champions and connect others to get involved with the Imagine Dubuque plan. We'll continue to use the Achieve It to track not only city council goals and priorities, the Imagine Dubuque plan, but we're also working with the Climate Action Plan and other plans in order to have some of that cross ability, to, especially when we look at grants and have the ability to look up and search for certain words and identify things to be able to help with grant applications and cross-track all those city plans that we have. But then also look for an also comprehensive plan update in fiscal year 2028. So our comprehensive plan was implemented in 2017. You look at updating it about every 7 to 10 years. I think a big focus right now, especially with the University of Dubuque campus being downtown and the focus on infill and development, is to get that downtown master plan updated. Has been updated since 2000, so it's about 25 years old. Some people look at doing the master plan, a downtown master plan, and a comp plan at the same time. I believe the focus should be just to focus on the downtown specifically, and then we look at updating that master plan, specifically since we did an entire comprehensive rewrite of the comp plan back in 2017. Typically, you'll see updates every 5 to 10 years, updating all the demographic information, any major changes that have happened over those certain years, as opposed to a complete comprehensive rewrite of the plan. So. That's all I have, unless you guys have any questions.
All right, thanks a lot, Wally, and thank you very much, Jason, for all the great information. I'll open it right up to questions at this point. Mr. Resnick?
Yeah, thank you. So much great information, and you gave us an update. Does your group ever recommend certain, I mean, I know we've done some completion and we're working on things. Do you ever recommend, hey, this would be a good year to concentrate on this project or that project or this general overarching idea? As you mentioned that you actually wanted to bring this to us so that we could think about, and it's everything, right? Mm-hmm. Is there, and it'd be nice sometimes if maybe it's too hard because it's all important. It's all kind of a level playing. These are the things that need to be done. But has there been any discussion about ever making a recommendation about the best way to complete what our plan is? This would be a very good year to tackle XYZ.
Yes, so we actually go through the city council goal setting priority. So each department has that opportunity to speak out and give that input. Also, our office has a lot of boards and commissions, so we do city council goal setting for the board and commissions to talk specifically what are their focus points, what they would like to see move forward as you guys consider the budget, which directly relates to the comprehensive plans. A lot of the major focus points that we look at is that infill housing, with the University of Dubuque College being located in the downtown, we have this great economic generator to make a big focus and change in our community. One of the big focuses that we're working on is a downtown land use plan that we're doing internally in our office to help identify all those vacant spaces. And then we're also seeing the need for housing in our community, right? We have a big focus on creating more housing units, and where's the ability to do that? And where's our existing facilities that can be rehabilitated? You see quite a few projects that are happening up and down the Central Avenue corridor, in addition to like the Nestler Center that's being rehabilitated by Chris Miller. We also have development for new construction in the downtown, as we've seen that some that received some new market tax credits for redevelopment located for Gronin, specifically down at 5th and Main, in addition to other projects where we're looking at the Bridge Restaurant. And then also we have those other areas in our community, like for instance, the Annex Group located out at the Point, creating some much needed workforce housing in our community. So if you're asking me specifically as a city planner, I'd focus on housing. Infrastructure needs is another big discussion point as we move forward to how we support and create that infrastructure to provide that infill in our community in order to help support growth and manage growth for that need. And then also another focus that was brought up from the planning department is that downtown master plan, our comp plan, but we also heard from our long-range planning advisory commission updating our land use map. So we're working with our engineering department, our sanitary sewer asset management plan with regards to where's our existing sanitary sewer capacity, where does it make sense to focus growth and infill, and be able to come up with that plan would help guide some of those budget decisions that you guys have to make moving forward as you look at the comprehensive plan and your budgeting system. So.
And thank you very much. I appreciate that. I know we generally don't have, unless we ask for it, we generally don't have staff recommending to the council, we need to do that and this. But, for the comprehensive plan, I think that's a very special reminder that you could give us. And you got a lot of great people working on that committee. So, I don't know what Mr. Van Milligan's thought process is on this, because generally it's about the council and what we feel and get from the citizens that really, so I'm not sure how to deal with this, but I would love a reminder and some kind of word from you about what we would, this is where we're going. It would be, now's the time perhaps to do this. But Mr. Mayor, I don't know how that would happen in this, situation, because again, it's not about city staff recommending to us, it's us talking to city staff and say, here's what the people of Dubuque really want to do. So, so I'm not sure how to handle that, and maybe some others have some good ideas, but thank
Yeah,
you
go
for the
ahead, Mike.
information.
Thank you. So actually, in a way, I think it is part of the process now. So as you're aware, the consultant that you hire to do the council goal setting, he starts his work several months ago, and the goal setting is next week. And he not only interviews each council member individually, but he comes to Dubuque for a day and meets with department managers in small groups. And part of their responsibility in those meetings is to talk about, okay, what did we do with last year's priorities? And then what do we think the council should at least consider for next year's priorities? So really what you end up getting is not only the input from each individual council member for your meeting, you get the input from the department managers, and you get the input from the public. So then you get to take all of that over those 3 days and decide on your 5-year goals and the 1-year priorities. But we do provide that input now.
Okay, well, then that's good to know. I'm not sure where in that, I'm trying to think over, maybe it was in that first day we started talking about, the overview and how that all works. And, but I think it's a great process. So thank you very much. I'll be looking for that.
And then I guess I would add one thing, is that's why we scheduled tonight's work session too, is it's intentional that every year planning has a work session with you just before goal setting, so you can get an update on the comprehensive plan.
Other questions? Oh, please, Wally.
Can I
Sorry,
add too?
Thank you.
So, you sit down in the room and you go through all those recommendations, right? You have hundreds, and you vote and you whittle them down and everything. So we also take all that information from what the consultant compiles. We actually bring that back to our office, and then we go through all the recommendations, say what ones are meeting and moving forward elements in the comprehensive plan. So we help identify certain goals and elements that have been identified in the plan. There are new things that come up that are not identified in the plan that become a priority. Things change, as certain things happen throughout our community. But that's an additional level of review that we get involved with the comprehensive plan as well. So,
Thanks, Wally.
yep.
Yeah, Ms. Whittle.
I do remember last year, and Wally, I don't remember if you were in the room for goal setting. I feel like it was the second night. And we were trying to narrow things down. And we looked to the city manager and we said, are these two things too big to bite off at once? And so I think we've talked a lot, at least since I've been council, on if you prioritize everything, you prioritize nothing. And so I'm really excited to learn from all of you. We've got some pretty big priorities, and we have focused on them already to a certain degree. But when it comes to infrastructure, we have only so many staff. We have only so many dollars. And so I'll be excited to dig through everyone's recommendations from the staff as we move forward on those. Those are really helpful for me personally going into goal setting. So thank you for providing them. Thank you to all departments for providing them. But just something that I think we should keep in mind when it comes to your department.
Thank you.
Ms. Rousseau?
Thank you. In looking at the website, Wally, it's really, really helpful, and you can see what's on track and more detail about it. But I wondered if there was a document in there that summarizes the achievements, because I think it's pretty impressive and exciting to see what has been achieved because of this plan that was brought to us, with citizen input and all of us working together. So I think that would be interesting if you could add that to the website. Here's what we've already done. Look at what we've done together.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion too. That's something we would definitely work with Randy Gale and our communications office to be able to put together. Because, we're going to be updates, quarterly updates. So we give updates to our Long Range Planning Advisory Commission quarterly. We come to you once a year to kind of give you that overall arching update. But to be able to have a document out there that helps provide kind of almost like a magazine or that research and everything that's associated with, like, where did we start, what has been achieved, where we're going. Some of those recommendations you'll see are things that are more like encourage workforce housing, right? Are you ever going to achieve that? No, we're going to constantly enforce, right? We want to keep working on getting more and more workforce housing. But then you also have some that are very, very definitive, right? Like fire station on the West End or something very concrete to be able to have those conversations. And those are a little bit easier to report on. But I think I agree with you because a lot of times I think our citizens don't fully understand what the comprehensive plan is and how it helps guide and make decisions. You'll hear me tonight when we talk about our public hearings, how I always refer back to the comprehensive plan, how it's moving for a land use decision that you guys make through a rezoning process. But not only that, but it also helps you make decisions on, infrastructure and funding and the CIP, and then as you move forward the operation and the budget, this is your voice that the citizens have. It's a document that's been compiled together to help inform you guys and help make some decisions on moving forward in certain aspects. But yeah, I totally agree. That would be something we would definitely like to add to the plan, kind of those milestones and those achievements.
Thank you.
It's a great suggestion. Thanks.
Ms. Farmer.
So speaking of milestones, I'm very much interested in learning more about the downtown master plan for fiscal year 27, and I know what's going to happen before 27, some of it. Is there any thought as to how you're going to evolve and generate that plan?
Yeah, so there'll be an ask. There'll be a funding ask with regards to it. So we'll be putting together a request for proposals, but as we move forward and we did all this community engagement for the Unified Development Code, right? Reaching out and talking to our individuals and talking about our community as a whole. We had a great input, great impact from that. We're also moving forward on several other items that are located in our downtown with some improvements to the Millwork District master plan update. We did the Chaplain Schmidt Island update, several other things. But as we move forward with that downtown land use master plan, that is the document that's going to really help set some of that moving forward. We have all these parking studies, right? We have all these pedestrian bicycle studies. How can we put all that information together and put it in a focus plan to help provide some guide and growth and decision making for the city council and our community as a whole? Basically listen to our residents and our citizens. What do they want? How is it going to be developed? Especially since we have this larger influx of housing that's being developed in our downtown. So COVID really changed. Office workers are working from home now. So we've had people come to us all the time. Hey, I would like to take that Nestler Center and make it into a warehouse building. And we're like, it's not identified in our comp plan. It's not identified in our zoning. And we'd much rather have people living in our downtown to be able to provide those services. So as you think of that infill and everything that's been identified, how's that going to help change downtown Dubuque? And not only downtown Dubuque, but we are the regional area for the tri-state area. What brings people to our community? What's the focus of that vibrant downtown? In order to help build on that, we do have a vibrant downtown, but where are the services, right? We have conversations about restaurants and timing of other things. We have conversations about grocery stores in proximity to other residential areas. Well, you have a core group of individuals that live in the downtown to be able to help provide those types of services. And with all the downtown housing, with the University of Dubuque that's happening, with the Millwork District, with the Chaplain Schmidt Island improvements, with what we're seeing out at the Point, not to mention future development of the Southport, we're really poised to have a lot of things that'll happen, but it'd be great to have a document to help guide that. The last document I said is dated in 2000. It's an outdated plan that identified reopening the plaza, which has been reopened. It helped identify several things that we've achieved. Now it's something to refocus and look at back in our downtown. So
So when I look at
Could
this.
I apologize to
Go ahead,
interrupt,
please.
but would you mind?
Yeah, sure, go ahead, Mike.
Thank you. So Wally just made a great pitch for the mayor and city council to consider updating the downtown master plan as a priority next year. And if you do that, we're going to do all those things he just said. If you don't, we can't spend time on things that you don't tell us is a priority. But I think he just made a great pitch for it.
Thank you, Mike.
So, and I'm just going to make a great pitch for the historical relevance of what the downtown was many decades ago. So when I was growing up, the hub of Dubuque was downtown corridor. And so I think it's interesting to have a natural recall to the history of the Dubuque Village, if you will, that existed down there where people worked and they played. There were the restaurants, there were the department stores, there were small businesses. As a matter of fact, there were a lot of small businesses down there that really was the grocery store business, if you will, for a lot of Dubuquers. So there were a lot of mom and pop operations down there, and every shoe store and every clothing store was owned by an entrepreneur down in the main street. And so I always have been very, very earnest in my appreciation for having grown up with that. And looking forward to seeing if that kind of energy and that kind of development can come back to the city and to the downtown. So thank you for putting that master plan idea together. Appreciate it.
Anybody else? Yeah, Mr. Resnick, go ahead.
I have another one, and this is about, you mentioned the workforce housing at the point, and I was down there quite a bit, and I was wondering, there has to be services probably, well, there'll probably be services when it's all a lot of people come and live there. And are those services, are those already being planned for, or does that happen organically? I know we don't, put up stores, and we don't put up other services that are, that the private businesses do and private developers. But are we already looking at a plan for where those support businesses will be located for all those people that are going to be living down at the Union facility at the point? Or how does that, which comes first, the chicken or the egg down there?
It's the market. So I get several questions specifically about, why is something placed where it is? And one of the big conversation points that get brought up is retail. Why don't we have a Red Lobster? Well, we used to hear that for years. There's market factors and details that they look at. Proximity, how many cars drive by the door, how many people live within so many miles of the establishment, what's the average income in the area and everything. So there's many market forces that come into play with it. But the one thing they also look at is density, right? So one of the big focus points is if you have a dense area, there's an opportunity to be able to provide services because it's within walking distance and everything that's associated with it. When we look at the Union facility at that location, the Union at the Marina, it's a great workforce housing development that focuses on individuals that are at the 80% median family income level, which covers quite a few people. It covered me, especially when I graduated from college growing up. And then also, even my wife's a teacher right now, and I would say if she was single, she would qualify to live in those units, in addition to some of our nurses and other positions that are available. But also, it's a great location next to the A.Y. McDonald Park. We also have the swimming pool located by, and we also have this great natural resource of the Mississippi River to be able to take advantage of. But we're also making some improvements with the RAISE grant. There's a bike hike trail that's already existing on the flood wall to be able to provide those connections. We do have transit that goes throughout the area, in addition to another bike hike trail that's scheduled to be on Kerper Boulevard, but it's proximity to jobs. So when we talk about live, work, and play, some people, when I ask, what's the definition of the downtown? Some people take that definition and move it all the way to the riverfront. Everyone has different definitions that's associated with it. But as we look at the development of that area, what are the areas that could be able to provide services? We have some vacant lots in the general area. We also have some buildings that are sitting there vacant currently. Great adaptive use of the property. Situation was that was a divided highway that provided our major traffic over the Wisconsin Bridge several years ago. Things have changed. Adaptive use to the areas are occurring. But not only that, we also have the PAC site. The PAC site sits down there. There's a great opportunity to look at a more focused development such as this, maybe a mixed-use development, ground floor, retail, and commercial, to be able to provide services to people that live in the neighborhood and the point. But I also ask people too, where do you go to the grocery store right now where you live? So be able to the focus and the development that's associated with it, but also the services that come along with density. So all those different markets and factors that come into play usually comes down to number of vehicles driving by the door if it's vehicular, number of people that live within a certain distance in the mile of the area, average income, and then what are the resources, because the market's really going to dictate, I'm going to put a grocery store where I can make money or be able to help sustain that. And when we look at the PAC site, that's a great opportunity right there for more multiple family density. But then also, like Jason talks about, his big focus, especially in our department, is the bike, hike, pedestrian trail system. How can we create that opportunity to make those connections? The RAISE grant does that, and it also provides connections from not only those future sites, but then also to our downtown, and creates more walkability and biking. And if you go to look at other communities throughout the United States, and you look focus, there's a lot of high density development that comes along with those specialty type uses. Now, I said that by specialty type uses, but you still need the basic services of your convenience store, your grocery store, your pharmacies. But some of the other focus that you see, especially in downtowns, is specialty retail and some other things associated with it, especially since what has changed. A lot of people are ordering things online and it gets delivered right to their door. So other uses that we talked about that come up that have been identified in the Unified Development Code, in addition to mom and pop grocery stores. So when you think of our Kramers, and you also think of the Copper Kettle, and Magoo's another good example. When we take adaptive use of these existing facilities, they're already located in the neighborhood, right? They're already there, but our zoning ordinance changed those to be residential or some other types of use because there wasn't such a demand for it. Well, there's a focus with that Unified Development Code to re-encourage the redevelopment of those properties in order to provide those services in our residential neighborhoods. The other thing, just one other thing I want to point on is our family household size has reduced significantly compared to what it used to be. So I just attend the Iowa Housing Conference in Cedar Rapids. There's a professor from the University of Washington that made some very good points with regards to communities where we talk about how the dynamics have changed. There's a lot of just single person households where people are basically living in a unit by themselves and they go home to their cat and their dog. So when we look at development, how can we meet that need? But then also how can we meet the need of our school districts and create more housing where we have more students and more families to be able to live in order to support where those schools are located. So a lot of factors that come into play with that, a lot of discussions. I know it's a long-winded answer, Mr. Resnick, with regards to it, but yeah.
Well, thanks. Obviously, a lot of thought goes into this and a lot of work, and it will continue after this. But thank you very much for that great information. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I feel like you just said our conversation from the Community Foundation Data Walk the other night when we were talking about household sizes and how we need to think about, for instance, Union at Marina and getting people who are new college graduates who are just starting out a place to live. And even if I have it correctly, and I know you're not Jason, or Ryan Konecki, but I think the pink line goes down to Union and Marina. And so we have transportation, our bus system goes there, and you guys have always worked so well at making sure that we're getting those connections, that where we're putting housing developments, we're thinking ahead about where we can put a bus stop and where we can do our part with our community partners and developers to ensure the transportation infrastructure supports that housing development. So you always think of that. Thank you for doing it.
Thanks.
All right. We have a crowd forming for the next meeting, so any other questions before we adjourn here? Well, Wally and Jason, thank you very much for this update every year. It is very good food for thought as we walk into goal setting, so we sincerely appreciate you being here, so thank you.
All right, thanks.
All right, there's no further business in the work session, so we are adjourned.